that's the term pre-selection, right? A lot of guys, well, how do I need her to think that other women like me? And it's like, well, women can kind of pick up on it, right? If you're talking and the way you communicate with people, she's going to go, this guy can easily go find somebody else if I'm not around. Whereas if you don't know how to flirt, part of her is always going to go like, is he with me because he can't get anybody else? And you never want to be in that position. But if you can know how to flirt, it's like that one thing that every woman knows, like, oh, he's a flirt. And that, like, not that you want her to be always scared you're going to go meet somebody else, but it's like, if she doesn't think that you have that ability, you're never going to get that respect from her that you really need to keep her chasing you. And part of it is her feeling like, yeah, he's with me because he wants to be with me, not because he needs to be with me. And I think being able to flirt shows her like, oh yeah, I could be with other people, but I choose to be with you, which is way more attractive to a woman than he needs.
100%. Like, that is the best word. I choose. I'm choosing you. Like, that is the sexiest thing in the entire world. Like, I have tons of other options, but you're the most special one. Amazing.
Hey guys, I'm here with my friend Marni. You guys may know her from her YouTube channel, Your Personal Wing Girl. She's got over 1 million subscribers. She's been a friend of mine for years, and I'm super excited to have her on. We're gonna go over a lot of stuff today. First off, Marni, how's it going?
It's good. I'm excited to talk to you.
I think it's probably been over a year or so since we've jumped on one of these, and I always have fun with it. So I wanted to get Marni on, and we wanted to talk about what to do and what to say to keep a woman chasing you. Your attitude, your words, to keep the attraction alive, because both Marni and I do coaching, and you're probably in the same situation where a guy maybe gets a woman into him. First couple dates go well, but then that attraction starts fading. And a lot of times I think the guy doesn't know how to keep her going, right? Maybe he especially if he's a good looking guy, it's kind of easy at first to get her attention.
Yeah.
And after a couple dates, you can almost see that interest dwindling. So one of the questions I always get is, how do they keep that alive? So I wanted to get your opinion on it, not only as a great coach, but also as a female yourself, of how a guy can keep that woman chasing.
I mean, there's a million reasons why it can fade. She can be losing interest. They're not getting deeper and progressing. So there's a whole bunch of things that are going on. So it's sort of hard to answer in this is exactly what's happening. But like, let's say the context, for example, of the attraction is fading and the man in question is becoming needier, for example, right? Or he's becoming overly invested compared to where she is at. And so typically when this happens, you have a guy who's going up like this and a girl who's going down like this. So I did a podcast a few weeks ago with my friend Mark Singh, and I had been explaining a solution for this for a very long time, but my solution was much more long-winded, and he explained it in a very concise way that I thought was really magical. So he says 80-100. 80-100. I think it's a great way to think about things. So whenever she's investing 100, you invest 80%, right? Into any scenario that you're interacting with a woman, whether you're in a long-term relationship, in a new relationship, in your third date, or in your 40th year of marriage. You have that 100%, that 80%, which keeps her at the 100%. So for example, if she sends you a text that's like 4 lines long, this is like petty, but like you send her a text that's 3 lines long. If she takes, 10 minutes to reply back, you take 16 minutes to reply back. And I know it's not really 80-100, but you know what I mean? It's just not investing more than she's investing. So I want to talk about the flip side of that also, because I said there's like different scenarios and context. But another scenario that happens to a lot of guys is they're really great at attraction. They're great at the flirtation phase, but they don't know how to get any deeper and increase the connection that is happening between himself and the woman, right? They never really get real. They don't get vulnerable. They don't share things. And that, depending on the age of the woman as well, I would say over 25, that's when things like that become really, really important. And as you get older, it becomes way more important. Like 75, super important. Don't flirt at all. Just connect the entire time. I'm totally joking with that. But like a lot of guys don't know how to get past that fun bantery phase. So they do it like 90% of the time, which is great in the beginning. But what really happens as you go on more dates is it should be starting to, level off with a connection. So second date, it's like 75% super fun and flirty and 25% connection. And keep going from there. So those are the two reasons, and then the two solutions on how to fix those issues is connecting more, or on the flip side, not over investing.
Yeah. So just to kind of calibrate on a couple of those things. One is yeah, I never heard the analogy of the 180, but what I've been, kind of drilling into guys recently is that as a man, you kind of have to slow a woman down a lot of times, because a lot of times when a woman first starts dating you, she's really into you, right? She starts texting you all the time, and the guy thinks, yeah, like this is going good.
Yeah, so, and you give it back.
And then she mentions, my friend's wedding's coming up in 2 months. Maybe we can go. And he gets all excited. So he starts talking about, whatever. Like, oh, we're going to go snowboarding in the winter. Eventually, she's like, whoa, this guy's moving too fast. Even though she was the one.
Right, she's leading it.
Him, and it's because as a guy, it's like the woman always kind of subconscious or even consciously expects the guy to slow her down. So I think that your point is a good way to think of it, is you should always be slightly less. Even if you notice her at a certain level, don't go, oh my God, she's at that level. It's okay if I give it all away this early, because it will bore her very quickly.
Yeah, and the thing is, even in a long-term relationship, and it's funny because when we were doing this podcast, I needed him to clarify that a bit more, because there are certain people who use that as a tactic to not give at all to a woman, to have her continuously chasing. Really, it ends up being like 60-100, and that creates insecurities. It creates dysfunction in the relationship. So the better way to think about the 100% is I have 80% for her, 20% for me. Doesn't mean I don't hear her. Doesn't mean I don't respect her. Doesn't mean if she has a want, I'm not like, yeah, you want a foot rub every night? Great. I'm going to give you a foot rub every other night, because that's what you still hold on to that 20% for yourself, where you're not her bitch. You are her partner, potentially. You are her lover. You are a man that she's potentially thinking about for the future. And a man that she wants to think about for the future, whether, again, you're in a long-term relationship or you just met 3 days ago, is a man that can lead, that respects himself, and then can not get so overwhelmed by his emotions that he forgets about everything else.
Yeah, because I think, one of the things that's also tricky for guys is that women will, to your point, a lot of times they'll say something that they want, right? Maybe it's like, I want to hang out on Sunday. Hey, come on, cancel your plans with your friends. Yeah. And in the moment, you might think, well, if I cancel my plans, I'm getting to spend time with her. She gets what she wants. She wants to see me.
And I get what I want. I get sex, or
that, the more it's like, oh, okay, I got him. It's like every once in a while, yeah, it's like great, like spontaneous. Even now, I've been with my woman for a while, and it's like, she knows if I'm working, don't bother me at work. But every once in a while, yeah, I'll surprise her. We'll come out.
Exactly. And you're like, oh, work's done. I ended the day early. I want to go take you and do something. Then it's like special, right? But every time you're doing it, she's like, oh, okay, well, what else? And not that I'm trying to paint a picture of women being horrible, but that's how it feels for us. It doesn't feel as special. And even more so, like, to piggyback on what you were saying, there's this level of like establishing boundaries for yourself too. I think I used to say, when my girlfriend would find a guy, oh, I'm not going to see her for 3 months. She gets 3 months to not be my friend. And then, we're back into our normal cycle of friendship, because that's usually how it is. You get lost in a new person. But what tends to happen when you get lost in a new person is that you establish new patterns with this person that may, I don't even know the right word of how to phrase it. Like, it might bite you in the butt afterwards. Like, if you're seeing her every single day, and then after 3 months, you're like, I really should go hang out with my friends again. I really should, get some me time. It feels crappy on both sides when the other side decides to do that. So it really is about setting up boundaries at the front end. Even if the boundaries are, what, I'm the kind of guy, I don't have a lot of friends, but Sundays to myself is everything. That's how I recharge. That's how I'm ready for work. And that's how I give all my energy to you. I need to be by myself on Sundays, but I still really like you, and I'll see you on Monday. Like, it's still maintaining that position for you, so that you're not kind of feeling bad about it or fighting for it down the line, or kind of shocking her that you're suddenly asking for it.
Yeah, it goes both ways. I've been in, relationships myself years ago where I made that mistake, and it's like, you're giving her everything, and you're missing Monday Night Football with your friends, and all of a sudden you want to go Monday Night Football, and it's like, and
you watch football? Yeah.
that the earlier you said it, the better. And to your point, You know, it's a lot easier for guys, right? This whole everything that comes with keeping a woman interested is the more you have going on in your life, naturally, the easier this is, right? If you're passionate about your work, you have a lot of friends, you go in whatever, you're in different exercise, you know, you go out in fitness, and it becomes very easy. You don't have to consciously play the game. But if you're a guy who doesn't have a lot going on, you have two choices, right? You either have to do what you said and just like, hey, I just want time for myself on Sundays, or you have to just improve your life, which a lot of times clients don't want to hear that. And it's like, listen, man, like you need shit going on in your life, because if the woman is the only thing in your life, not only are you going to make mistakes just because of, you know, having a scarcity mindset and being afraid to lose her, she's also going to pick up on it that you don't really have anything else going on, which might be fun at first because she's getting all your attention, but eventually it's like, dude, this guy is like, I'm his everything.
Right. He has no friends. And it's really important. It's so interesting because I know you've been doing coaching for a long time, but we started doing coaching programs, I think like a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago now. And I think the guys actually they learn from our programs, but what I'm noticing is the thing they like best is other men to talk to. Because a lot of them don't actually talk to men, make time to socialize with men, share thoughts and feelings and frustrations with men. So, I mean, if you're not an adventurous person, you don't want to go join the gym, you don't want to join clubs, you don't want to have this like world of typical abundance about what everybody else is talking about, he may be the guy who likes to go to the library and read, whatever it is. I would always highly suggest that you still join a men's circle, just somewhere to go and talk to other men. It's an hour a week. You can do it virtually. You can do it in person, but just like to have some sort of other connection. But that's still something that's really important to you. It doesn't take a lot of effort. You're not skydiving. Right. You're not majorly transforming yourself. You're still living true to who you are, but you have an outlet for yourself and a space and place to connect with other people and share.
Yeah, no, that's true. And you're right. I've experienced that with coaching that you said you're experiencing. A lot of people, at least people that I know, when they find out what I do, they have a vision of who a typical client is. And I'm like, no, like most of my clients are like successful, 40 something, and they just, like you said, all their friends are either married, they're not in that realm. And then they get on a call and they just like being able to go, man, I don't know what's going on with this one. Because they don't have and I think that having that, even just having somebody else in your life that you can have these conversations with, allows you to eliminate some of that neediness, right? Because if you're sitting at home constantly flirting, checking your phone, and you don't have a friend or another guy to go, listen, dude, chill out, because it's
100%. So my husband actually has this friend right now who's single, and it's been single for a long time. And every time that he calls, because he's like dating a new girl right now, my husband's like, oh, I'm gonna have to give 45 minutes. It's just harder when you're married, but when you're younger, you're like, yeah, we'll talk about this forever. We'll go out, we'll have drinks, we'll talk about this. Like there's other people, you have to find other people who are in the same stage of life or position in life that you can bounce ideas off of, because they're experiencing it too. Plus, even getting ideas on how to go out, like in my group coaching calls, there's this amazing guy, John, who, when he got divorced, he happened to have this other friend who had been divorced for 7 years, and he just had this whole world, right? And he just said, come on into it. 6 other divorced guys, they go out 3 nights a week. Like it was amazing, like a great transition for him. But most guys don't have that. But so even hearing the ideas that John has about how to get out, what to do, what's important, like I have fears that I had when I first got out. It's really nice to even hear from somebody that's a bit ahead of you.
The second thing that you mentioned when it came to chasing was, being a little bit more open, connecting with the woman. And I think that is an issue, and especially guys who learn, you're one of your specialties is teaching guys how to flirt, right? So a guy who maybe never learned how to flirt, he learns to flirt, he's getting really good reactions, and he goes out, he goes on a couple of dates, he's flirting. And what happens, and I've seen it happen as well, is like, yeah, the woman's attracted, but there's no like emotional, like you're not a human being to her, right? You're not humanized. It's like she can easily forget about you. And nowadays, I mean, listen, women and men, we have millions of options, right? No woman is only talking to you. So if you're just the guy who makes her laugh, it's good, you're sparking emotion. But then if she's away from you and there's no like bond there that makes her go, oh yeah, like that story you told her, right? Whether it's a childhood sort of memory story that you share together that gives her that memory of who you are.
Or something to connect to, like, oh, we both have this. He gets me.
How do you help clients balance, like, because one of the things that I found that clients have messed up is I had to change the term. I used to go, sometimes you have to be vulnerable. And there's a difference between vulnerable, I know I call it cool vulnerable, where you make fun of something you did when you were a kid, or, some aspect of yourself, versus like the clients who I'm thinking sharing means my ex-girlfriend cheated on me. And
that's unloading. That's
different. I think
dwelling and unloading.
Knowing when you say connect and open up, what do you tell guys? Where does that line of like expressing yourself, but not going overboard where, unloading and being that sort of bad, negative energy vulnerable?
Yeah. So one is being emotional and one is sharing about how you feel. So sharing about an emotion, so confidently sharing. So for example, I could say, oh, my ex-wife is a total bitch. Like, it's just, my life is so hard right now. I hate it. I'm dealing with the kids and blah, blah, blah. So that's like an emotional dump. And that's going to happen in dating anyway. Like as you get to, because that's also connecting, is telling the person about your life, right? About the stresses that you have going on. But, at the front end of dating, it can be like, life with an ex is super challenging. It is. It's absolutely challenging. I'm not going to say that it's easy, but I'm learning how to handle it better and how to remove myself from the situation so that I can enjoy myself and continue to live my life.
Version, just as an aside, you're also taking responsibility and showing that you're making something happen. You're not whining, you're not complaining, you're not like, there's nothing I can do about this. Like, it sucks, but listen, I'm getting through it. I'm managing, right? Which is an attractive masculine quality to a woman in itself.
And even vulnerable can be something like, I was really embarrassed by that. I was totally embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was really beaten down by my last relationship. It was really hard. Like, that's vulnerable, right? But you're not dwelling in it. You're not blaming her for it. You're just explaining how it felt and what it felt like. And even at the tail end. So we did this, we do a master class every single month, and we had this one guest on, and he ran a drill at the end of the class we brought this one guy on who was a participant, and he said, okay, well, you're going to try, I want to see what your interaction would be like with this girl who he brought on as a guest. And he said, let's see how you interact. And he started by saying like, oh, hi, how are you? Asking a question, she answered. What's your name? Asking a question, she answered. What do you like? It went into question. And then the host said, okay, instead of this third question, I want you to respond with a share and a feeling about her response. It was very challenging for this guy. He didn't know how to know the difference between a share and a question. Every time he tried, he kept doing a question. But even at the beginning portion, like that little bit of sharing about whatever she said, I'm from Jersey, right? So it's sharing about what you know about Jersey, how you feel about Jersey, your opinion about Jersey, without putting it down. And you can even use that as a place to start flirting and bantering. But that's the beginning of connection there. When you're just asking questions of somebody, you're not connecting, you're interviewing. You're like checking a box, kind of like it is in an interview. Oh, what are your worst qualities? Well, it's not a fun, engaging conversation. It doesn't really elicit the emotions that are needed for attraction to be formed. But as you get deeper into the conversations with women, you can go from flirting to asking really good questions and then sharing about yourself. So for example, if you're on a date and you can even say something like, hey, like, what was your childhood like? Or where are you at with relationships, right? And then so you can ask this question, she can give her answer, and then instead of just saying great and then continuing to ask a question, because that's not connecting, you share yourself and you go, oh, I really like that you said that. I'm actually thinking the same thing about relationships myself. I'm just looking to explore. Like, that's a bonding connection moment there. And I have a whole program on this, but that's like the beginning stages of how to actually connect to a human being. It's like leaning in, learning something about them, sharing something about yourself, and then potentially moving on to other topics of ways to figure out if you get along and getting to know each other better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've done not the same exercise, but I can remember a client where I was talking to him and he's like, well, I don't know how to open up. And I'm like, well, just, tell me about, like I didn't tell him. So I go, well, I want to know about you. Like, give me an impression of who you are. And he's like, well, I'm a big fan of MMA and, I grew up here. And I'm like, and he finished talking, I go, listen, I know a whole bunch of facts about you, but like, I don't know anything about you. I'm like, and if that's like, a girl may know all these facts, but she's not going to know you. Whereas if you tell her this, you go in and you tell her an anecdote. Oh man, I went on this date and I was sitting across from this girl and I was like, I knew it wasn't going to work out, but so I went to the bathroom. I'm in the bathroom thinking like, how do I get out of this? And you just let her inside. And then you come back, like, and you're telling that story. She may not know one fact about you, but she's going to feel like she knows you because you said you're sharing the emotions that you were going through in that moment. And she'll remember that way more than, oh, he likes this. She may not even, because she doesn't, we don't really care about those things that we ask, right? Like, your client's asking, where did you grow up? Like, do you care about any of that? You just want to know, and somebody when they're expressing themselves, right? Whether it's an anecdote, a story, whatever it is. So
it's hard and I love how you just explained that, but it's hard for so many guys because that's not how they've been taught. But it is interesting. So I have 2 sons right now, and you have sons. Do you or do you?
Son and a daughter, yeah.
Okay, son and daughter. But so it's funny. So they are growing up in the same household. You can almost assume how I run my household when it comes to like communication, comfort. Like I'm teaching leadership and confidence. So I'm gonna show them I'm not showing them my videos. Obviously, they're too young for, but like they have models to learn from. And so my point is that it's not just about not being exposed to it. My older child, if I ever say like, hey, what do you feel about this? He'll say, good, nothing. Okay, like he just gives, what do you think about this? I don't know. It's so infuriating. And I give him words so I can show him the potential options. The other one, like flowers come out of his mouth every time that he talks. He's just like so expressive and so emotive. It's crazy. So like, I do say men talk this way or they don't have examples, but even sometimes it's just people in general. If you are not emotional, or I don't even know if that's the right word for it, but like if you don't feel them the same way as other people, it's really hard to express them. Yeah. But I will say that like 99% of women, like that's what we go by. I know there's a biological reason for it. And I've been told it a million times. I think it was like women who were, when the cavemen were out hunting, they had to guard their family and the community, and they had to get a sense for people when they came and they approached the tribe. So that's where like learning to not just listen to the words that are being said, but to see the underlying things that are going on became a huge skill set for women. And I think that's carried on to today. So the how that surrounds the things that you're saying are far more important than the what.
Yeah, it's funny. I forget who I initially heard the term from. Maybe it was John Sin. He's like, he calls women meaning makers because he's like, and I notice because I have a daughter, and it's always like, why did he do that? Right? Like, what's the meaning behind it? And it's like, and you have to explain to a guy sometimes that what you're doing, the meaning might be different, right? So I'll explain it to a guy. If you show up on the first date with a bouquet of roses and you take her to a really expensive restaurant, in your mind, you might be thinking, oh, I'm whatever, I'm showing her I'm successful by going to this. But the meaning she might decide is, this guy must not go on a lot of dates if he's this. That's the meaning. And women are always looking for that underlying meaning. And I think that as a guy, it took me a long time to kind of realize it, but I see it in very young with how a girl's mind works versus how a boy's mind works. Mm-hmm. They're all like, just what did she mean by that, right? Like, I don't think like that, it
is interesting. I love that you just said that because I think this is going back to the sharing and the connecting part. Like, if you're a guy and you show up with flowers, I might be like, okay, this is a little intense, crazy. But then we sit down at dinner and you're you're charismatic and you're sharing stories and you start talking about like how maybe your mom is super important to you, right? And she always taught you like when you go out with anybody, you bring them flowers. Like you're telling this story and then you're like, I don't even know how to make a joke about it. You're like, do you know how many flowers I bought this week? I'm trying to like show some way to show that you're doing this a lot. It's not that you're needy, but I'm just saying like even just expressing your belief system about the flowers, like that's something you'll never let go of. Even if you go on like 30 Bumble dates a month, like you're bringing flowers every single time because it's just something that's ingrained in you. Because that story and the way that you express it shows a lot more than just bringing the flowers.
Now the meaning changes, right? And now her meaning is no longer, oh, this guy is like dizzy, never been on a date. Now it's a completely
this is his first date. Yeah.
And just in general, right? And you probably, you've been coaching probably as long as I have. We both.
No, you're a little bit longer than me, I think. We're so old. We look good.
The thing that's kind of tough, right? And I thought of it as you're saying it, is that guy. And it's like you give certain advice. Okay, don't bring flowers. Don't. And it's like there's always the guy that does it and it still works. And part of it is and you hinted at this, or you kind of explained it in him saying it, but it's like the attitude behind it, right? If you're bringing flowers for that reason, like, hey, like this is just, versus you're bringing them because you really want to impress her, it's a totally different attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so complicated as a coach sometimes to explain that, because the guy will be like, oh, my friend tells girls that he loves her on the third date, and I'm like, yeah, but your friend is like a total player and they don't really believe him when he says it. He's a challenging guy. They think in her head, she probably thinks he's saying it to everybody.
Yeah.
But when you say, I love you on a third date, she's going, oh my God, this guy, because
really love me.
Perception of you is different, right? And how a woman perceives you changes. So there's all these different things that you kind of have to be aware of, and things that make it difficult sometimes to explain something, because there's always that guy that does it, and it's like, yeah, but what meaning would a girl get from him doing it versus from you doing it?
I know, I get that too. It's difficult. I do have a lot of clients that are on the spectrum, and they have crazy superpowers. Like just being on the spectrum is really helpful for them in dating, but there are a lot of areas where it can trip them up. And that's not my specialty, right? So I'm not equipped to coach on that level, but I find that's an area that becomes challenging, because it's like, wait, but this worked for this guy. Why wouldn't it work for me? And it is exactly what you just said. There's like, you are different from him. This is not a general rule of you do this, you get this. That's not how the world works. Everybody's different, right? But what we're advising, like you and I, we're teaching the basics, the foundation. And then once that foundation is there, then the rules do sort of shift, because once you get to that level of comfort and confidence, it's like you can say those things. You can do those things that you learned in the past trip you up or don't work as well. I had on my podcast this sexpert that came on, and he's been like a sex coach for the past 5 years. And the things that he was telling me that he brings up on his first date, I mean, he is a sex coach, so it's a natural transition in conversation. But he said he was an agent before, and he would start talking about like orgasms, like what are your favorite sexual positions on and it was because of the way that he asked it. It wasn't like, okay, so tell me about your favorite, like it wasn't intrusive. He would come from this really sincere, calm place and just bring up sex within the first hour. And I could totally see myself like diving into it, because he can tell he has that comfort level of sex. He doesn't need sex from me or from the women that he's dating. He's just talking about it because for him, that's a bar for him of like what I need to hear from somebody to know that I'm into them. If they're sexually closed off, like that's not for me. So it is interesting. Like once you have the foundations met, then this whole new world opens up and the rules kind of fall to the side.
Yeah, you got to learn the rules, and you have to understand it, and you also have to play probability, right? I always tell guys that, like, like you can do whatever, right? We keep going back to the same thing. You can bring flowers on the first date. The probability is maybe she'll like, but probably not. It's probably going to send the wrong message. So why take that one of there's all these things. It's like, as a coach, we kind of know, right? There's never a sure, if somebody's like, what should I do, Marni? You're going to give them the best probability of success, right? Now, maybe something else could have worked, maybe something, but it's like in anything in life, right? You're going to take the thing that's most likely going to get you where you want to go, right?
Exactly.
And that's exactly what that's the way I tell guys to look at it. Like, yeah, you can do this, you can do that, but if you had to bet what your move should be, go with that. Don't go for the exception. Go for the rule, right? Yeah,
I totally agree with that.
and as you get better, right? And as you, I mean, listen, like you're bringing up the guy who talks about sex. I have friends, and even I've been on dates where somehow the first date we talk about threesomes and this, and it's like great and it's natural, but it's like I didn't go into it going, I'm going to talk about sex, or whatever. It just comes up and it's natural and it's not a big deal to me. And if it's not a big deal to the guy, the girl's, like you said, she's comfortable because it's not a big deal to him. But it can't be a tactic, right? You're not going to, I'm going to go, I have to talk about sex on the first date, which if you go into it, especially if you're not really socially intelligent, you can really go about it.
And you can't like ride the wave of conversation to naturally transition to there, right? Where it's just like, so what do you think about sex? Like but even as I say that, like some people can pull that off. There's the exception to the rule, but in most of the cases, you're absolutely right. Like it's not going to pull off the way that it could potentially for that small percentage of people.
Your specialty is flirting. So what is how do I say it? Like, how does a guy keep it fun, right? Because I was actually, one of my coaches hit me up today and he was telling me about a client who the girl's not giving him much, right? Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes you meet a girl or whatever, a guy, if you're a girl, and it's like that chemistry happens. You don't really have to work too much. But sometimes the other person doesn't give a lot. And I always tell guys, this is your responsibility. You have to change your mood. You have to lead her into that playful state. So if a guy let's just assume he's been hanging out with her a couple times. At first, when you first meet somebody, it's really easy to be funny because you're on. But then the third or fourth date, it's like, well, what do you recommend guys doing to keep that flirtatious vibe mixing in now with the other stuff? Like, what is your tactic?
I would say it's like, as you continue dating, it's like, I would say 50% fun and 50% connection, like as you're past the third date. So that would be my guidelines on like how to position it. It's a very broad question of like, how do I guide my guys? So it's really, there's a whole bunch of things. I have a list of tactics they can have in their back pocket.
So you kind of gave one earlier, but interview mode, right? Obviously that's first date, that always happens, but some guys still, like I've been in the situation back when I was single where, the third date comes, you haven't had any beers and you're like going back into interview mode, right? And it's like, so the guy that feels that like, oh man, I was really good with her the first 2 days, but now I've like lost it. What would you say, like if he feels himself going in interview mode, is there anything that he can do to?
Yes. So the biggest rule is 2 questions in a row, and then you got to switch it up to either a share or a playful disagreement or a tease of some sort. And like, I know that in your classes and my classes as well, you teach like the foundations of how to make that happen. Or sometimes I actually send people to improv classes if they don't even have that base there to work with, to like understand even how to banter or tease with people. But it's like 2 questions in a row, and then you have to respond to what's being said. So either a playful disagreement, right? So like, it could even be like, oh, you like hamburgers? Like, I'm a total hot dog guy. This is not going to work, right? And I know that that's a very beginning stage interaction, but it can be like something in the vein of that. Then it can be some sort of tease. Oh God, I've dated girls who like hamburgers. They are crazy. Like, it's some sort of tease. What was the other thing that I said? Or a share. And it's like, okay, so you're like a hamburger girl. I am much more of a hot dog guy. I don't even know where that came from, but honestly, like when I was in middle school, we had hamburgers every Thursday in our class, and I think I just like got burned. Like it's just a share. So it's still just something that's continuing to move the conversation forward instead of fishing for information. You're not really going to get information by constantly asking questions. Okay, but to go back to what you said about a girl who's like kind of tough. So I really believe you have one of 2 choices in that scenario. If you're like, that you know how to banter and you enjoy the banter that you do, and you kind of like being that open, playful guy, and the girl you've given it enough attempts. You've also tried to connect to her and she's still sort of like closed off. you have to think of it as a hiring process, right? She's not making the cut to get to the next stage of interviews. That's how I kind of think of it. The other side is that there's certain girls who have heard it all and they're just like, oh my God, I've heard all these teases a million times. So I would go into more of like a connection mode, more of a vulnerable mode, to be more real with her and see if that gets her to open up to you. And then you can be kind of serious with her and then tease.
Yeah.
So those would be the two tactics that I would say to engage.
Interesting, or I don't want to say funny because it's not funny, but it's what you're saying. It's like guys take on a lot of the blame, right? Because it's like some girls just aren't that good, right? It's like some guys hire you, like they give you the list. She did this, this, and this. I'm like, she sounds like pretty shitty. Why are you like trying to get her?
Yeah.
Right? Part of it is ego. I think sometimes it's like you know, that fear.
But it's not ego, because then they blame themselves. Right. So like, but I guess it is. It's like, I want to be able to get every girl, but it's like, but then they take it all onto themselves, which knocks their confidence, which isn't really helping their ego out. So I think just some people forget that they get to be the selector.
Yeah.
Like that's what dating is. They're getting to see who they want to date, and you putting your humor out there, you sharing your stories, like that's a way to see, are we a match for each other, either like to have sex later or potentially for more. Like that's why you put information out there to the other person, to see what they latch onto, to see what you connect with, to see like if you're constantly trying to please or ask questions or like impress the other person, there can't really be any connection happening. But if you loosen up, you joke around, not just be yourself, but if you're like the you that you are in front of your friends, that's when you get to see if there's something interesting that could happen.
Like if you're putting in all the work, right? And then she kind of realizes like, okay, he's putting all this work in, she relaxes too much. And if a woman's not, like, we all really, we fall in love with somebody about how we feel about ourselves, right? So if I'm with a woman and she's laughing at everything, I may go, she was the best girl in the world, but really I'm just feeling good about myself that I felt cool and funny. But if the woman's not putting any effort in, she goes away from it going, oh yeah, the guy was entertaining, but like she doesn't feel good about herself. So it's like you almost want to give her, like, force her to put in a little effort, because that'll actually make her like you more. If she's telling you a story and it's actually an interesting story and she senses, oh, he's engaged, and now she feels better about herself, rather than, a lot of guys think it's like all about you being funny. And yes, being funny is great. It loosens her up. But really, to me, being funny really is just about creating that sort of social lubrication that gets you both opening up, rather than you just being like, she's not going to fall in love with you because he was so funny, right? She'll fall in love with you because the playfulness made her relaxed, and she wasn't thinking about work, and she was in the moment, right? And then she leaves, and that's kind of what you need to do. So I think,
100%. Yeah. It's funny. I was with like my son, the unemotional one that I was telling you about, and we were at my other son's baseball game, and I said to him, okay, I want to show you an example of how to start conversations with people. And I said, the next person that comes and sits down beside me, I'm going to start a conversation with. And the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to them like I've known them for 20 years. And he goes, okay, that's fine. I mean, he's 10 years old. He's like, okay, sure, whatever. I'll just focus on my stuff, but sure. And the person came down and sat down beside us. And right away, I got them playing Wordle with me, like, and engaging in conversation as if we'd known each other forever, ever. And it was really fun. And like that, they opened up so much. We were joking around. They were touching my phone. They were touching my shoulder. Like, and I had just met this person. And afterwards, my son said to me, he's like, you've never met that person before? I said, no. And he goes, oh, okay. Like, that's the most I'm going to get from my son. But I just think it's like, the more that you just act as if this isn't something so precious and pristine, and like you do this all the time, you're absolutely right. Like the other side's comfort levels just increase like crazy, and they can be comfortable with you, which leaves room for all these other things. When you're going into interview mode, there's no comfort there, right? Because you're talking as if you don't know each other, which means that barrier is still up. So it's exactly like what you said, and I really liked how you explained it too.
And I think as a guy, you teaching your son as the woman doing it is great. You're teaching him a lesson. What I always tell guys is like, you can't really wait. A lot of guys, they go out and they're like, yeah, I want to flirt with her. I want to get, but they
no, right away.
Right? It's like, no, like you have to take that risk, right? It's sort of being vulnerable, right? You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to make a joke that could be, that could make her go, oh, where did that joke come from? Or you have to tell a story that like you have to take that risk, because once you do it, she very often will. But if you're waiting for her, then you stay in that boring conversation that, the guy, so yeah, we talked all night. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't talk about anything that made her feel like she knows you or feels attracted to you or any of that. So yeah, I think
exactly.
Being willing to take that risk. So
risk taking is the biggest, like that's the biggest takeaway from what you just said. It's like, take a risk. Well, it's not really just taking a risk. It's just like speaking as yourself. That's all that it is, which you typically don't do with guys, typically don't do with women. They hold back.
I mean, it's even something that you notice. I mean, you maybe you notice it too when you're in sort of the different atmosphere, right? Maybe you go to like I don't know, like a kid's birthday party, and you're talking to people there. And at first everybody puts on this very, hey, I'm the parent, like, and then all it takes is one person to make sort of I wish we had some beers or some sort of joke.
Oh yeah, and you're like, oh, you're human.
It's like, oh, we can be ourselves. We don't have to put on this like mask of, oh, I'm the great parent. It's like
you're totally right.
And it's really like that in all aspects of life. But I always tell guys as a man, especially in the dating scenario, you have to be the one to do it first. It's a good piece of advice in general to be the one to do it first. It's also something I have to remember in other areas of my life where I'm like, oh no, like just because this person is whatever, I'm at a business meeting and this guy's in, like, he's a human. And if I make a thing, I'm probably going to better rapport with him than if I come across as super professional and trying to, because we're all human deep down, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like my husband and I talk about that all the time. Like that is what networking is. It's not just going and saying, hi, I'm an accountant. I'll do the best job ever. Great. Here, have my card. Oh, now we're connected. It's like, oh, let's go for a beer. Let's go pick up those girls over there. Like that's really networking.
Yeah.
And then you have a friend and you're like, oh, I want to work with my friend. He's so much fun at that event that I went to. Okay, great. That's who I'm going to contact versus Mr. Pristine accountant to the left who may have a better resume, but I'm going to go work with the fun guy over there.
Yeah, totally. So I want to, guys that haven't checked out your YouTube channel, first off, you got tons of amazing videos on there. It's Marni, Your Personal Wing Girl is the name of the channel, correct?
I think so. I think it's actually, I signed up for YouTube so long ago. I think it's just my first and last name, Marni Kinnerist. That's it's like a personal account. It's not even a business account because I signed up for it literally 19 years ago. Wow.
And tell me, you have I know tons of my clients mention this book, actually, your F Formula book there. Oh, like they come in, they mention it. So tell the guys listening a little bit about that, because flirting, like we talked about, it's key. A lot of guys think, flirting, at least I used to think this, right? When I was single years ago, and it was like, oh, I'm going out to pick up girls. I need to know how to flirt. But I think flirting is important throughout the entire, I think I've one of the great, out of everybody I know, I probably have one of the best relationships because I tease and flirt constantly with her because it's fun. Like I think people forget that, like, oh, wait a minute, that's actually way more fun to have those sort of conversations than to be sitting around going, oh, what do we have to do to, like, and, going back to guys that are sort of in that beginning, I think that flirting is really, really, like, it's just something that keeps sort of the wheels going, and it keeps you, like, even if you mess up a little bit or you're to this, if she's having a good time flirting, everything's so much smoother. So you have this program. What tell us a little bit about it.
It's called the F Formula, and actually it pairs really well with our phase 2 of our coaching program, which is practice sessions with our wing girls. So it's like you're practicing flirting in a safe environment before you go out and you blow it with girls that you really wanted to have the opportunity with. So the F Formula was written, I guess, like 10 years ago now. And we're coming out with an F Formula 2.0, but it literally breaks down what is flirting, how women flirt, how men flirt, why flirting is so important, like the basic tools that you have already within you for flirting, the 7 basic tools. And then it breaks down like the process for flirting from the female point of view. So it's initiation, escalation. Oh my God, intoxication. I totally forgot it. Sorry. But yeah, so it's like those are the three phases. And the program tells you how to bounce around those three phases and just like read her signs to know where you're kind of at. But the initiation phase is the phase that you and I have been talking about for the first 10 minutes, where it's like literally who you should be with everybody.
Yeah.
Because flirting is not just for you to do with women that you're attracted to, it's for you to do with the world around you. Because as we just said, it like makes for better connections and networking. It makes just like a parent birthday party for like a 7-year-old so much more engaging if you're joking around with people and being it's adult play.
Yeah.
That's what flirting is, right? It's just being playful. So the initiation phase of flirting is all about just initiating, flirting, and using it as your tool for having conversation and to make people more attracted to you. And then it teaches you about the other two phases, about how to take it to a more escalated phase where it is more sexual. And then the infatuation phase where it's more sexual and she's really into you and you guys know that something more is going to happen. But I did want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
It's funny. Somebody wrote to me the other day about, the things that I say in my video are probably the things that you say in your video as well. And we talk about always like, attract any woman. So I did want to talk about like attraction and attract any woman. Yep. Attraction doesn't necessarily mean that I want to sleep with you. It just means that I'm drawn to you in some way. Like magnets attract each other. So magnets pull the other magnet in. And that's what you and I are teaching. We're teaching people to have more opportunities for those around them to like be sucked into them, to pay attention, potentially feel something more, so that there's potential for possibilities. So like that, like, I just think that's a really important thing to say. Like, these are the tools to attract more people to you so that opportunities happen for you.
I'm going to put a link to Marni's video where she talks a little bit more about the F formula below. I also recommend checking out her YouTube channel. Tons and tons of great videos on there. So this has been super fun. I always enjoy having you on. We're going to do it again.
Yeah, I would love to get you onto my podcast again in the new year. And I know you're not so into it, but I would love for you to host a masterclass. I think you would be so good. So I'm going to try and twist your arm to do that eventually.
Yeah, hit me up because I'm motivated for a new challenge of putting something together. I haven't something else, so maybe it'll inspire.
I feel like you have them. I've watched your videos. Like if you just did, I forget the one with the whiteboard. There's like a one specifically that I love. Like I think it's the older man and the younger women. Like literally just take that video and we do a masterclass on it. People will love it.
Yeah, I have been motivated to kind of get something new out there. So maybe it'll get me going. So yeah, hit me up about it.
Yay, I love that.
Cool. Really great talking to you, Marni.